Our next reader is a 16-year non-native of Chicago. She's slightly obsessed with square dogs, bees, and all things mini. She's performed improvisationally with Equals E, been sketchy with Das Glumlat, and has become part of Listen to Your Mother this year. She's the creator of the First Time Reading series, which I've participated in myself. It's very cool. And has maintained her own personal blog for the last 9 years at smussyole.com.
All right. Woo.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah. Preach it. She previously blogged for Chicagoist and Block Avenue, and now has a new home at Chicago Now with an unquiet Chicagoan. Please welcome Jocelyn Geboy.
Also short, so I think this might work for me. All right, let's go. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Music is a powerful connector. It connects people to one another. It connects people to places. But most often I find that music will connect me to a time in my life, an exact place, exact person, an exact memory. So it is with Johnny Nash and I Can See Clearly Now. I don't think I ever really cared too much for the song one way or another before the first week of June 2001. But since then it instantly places me in a circle of people doing music therapy on the 3rd floor of Lakeshore Hospital. If you're not familiar, I didn't have cancer or a broken pelvis. That's a psych ward. And given the circumstances, I suppose it was good they weren't playing the MASH theme song. Suicide is painless for the uninitiated. But I remember looking around and thinking, what a terrible mistake I had made. I'd been diagnosed with manic depression a few weeks before, started outpatient therapy, and embarked on what is now my 12-year relationship with medication. They also told me I had a dual diagnosis. I had substance abuse issues. When given the form to check off what sort of alcohol and drug use I did, I was honest because I classified myself as a recreational drug user and felt I had nothing to hide. Smoke pot every day? Check. Drop acid about 3 or 4 times a year? Check. Smoked ridiculously choice opium once? Check. Snorted pure coke for about a week? Check. Done mushrooms a couple of times, done ecstasy about 5 times, had a few Xanax here and there? Check, check, check. That's recreational, yeah? No PCP, no heroin, no meth, no crack. I'm good. The only thing I think I fudged on was the alcohol. You never want to end up an alcoholic, eh? After a tumultuous month of growing ever more manic and paranoid, and eventually having a huge falling out with both my roommate and my best friend in California, I was very alone. One day I talked on the phone with a counselor from outpatient, and he asked me something along the lines of if I felt safe. I knew that suicide was not really on my agenda, but the thought of the Klonopin they had prescribed me for sleep sitting in the medicine cabinet was comforting. The idea that maybe I could take them all and just go for a very long nap was at least appealing. And I knew that even though the bathroom was at least 5 miles away, insofar as the effort it would take for me to get off the couch, it probably was not the best headspace to be in. So I walked myself over to the hospital and checked myself in. Quick sidebar. I find it extremely odd that a person with substance abuse issues was initially prescribed Klonopin for sleep. If you don't know, it's an anti-anxiety med that is well documented for addiction and tolerance, even if you take it exactly as prescribed, which I did. They later switched me to Ambien, which was a new drug at the time. You know, the one that causes the sleep eating, sleepwalking, sleep driving, and sleep everything else. For me, if I didn't go directly to sleep right after becoming immensely sleepy and stayed awake instead, I would hallucinate and apparently have sleep phone sex with my long-distance boyfriend. I was glad for for the acid that I had done because I couldn't imagine mildly tripping if I had never tripped before. Is that pile of clothes on the floor moving? Fuck! When I asked my doctor about it, he tried to explain it away by saying that if you woke someone out of a deep sleep, they would, what, trip balls? Trust me, I have never been woken out of a deep sleep to be tripping, except for the time that another boyfriend and I woke up at 4 a.m. by some friends who had some acid, which we took, then promptly fell asleep again, and then woke up tripping. That involved actual LSD, bro. Okay, back to the SADs and checking myself into the psych ward. Mind you, I must have been in some state, because growing up, I always had this low-level nagging fear that one day I would, in fact, end up in the psych ward. That somehow I would find myself in some sort of one flew over the cuckoo's nest sitch and be scrambling and plotting about how to either convince them I was really sane or how to concoct some sort of escape plan. I wasn't sure how or when, but I was subconsciously always sort of on guard for the day that the authorities, capital T, capital A, would figure out something about me and take their chance to lock me away. I guess I was somewhat comforted by the fact that I was voluntarily doing the entering, assuming that I'd have the agency to get myself out whenever I felt like it. For anyone who isn't clear on that, you are technically allowed to say you want out, but it's not until a doctor says you're good to go that you're actually going to get out. Hint, if you don't have insurance, they're going to be much more likely to see you go than if you've got someone footing the bill. I walked in and I sat with someone and signed a bunch of stuff. Again, the mix of depression and manic paranoia must have been something to behold. I read everything meticulously, even though I knew I was sort of committed to going through with it, so to speak. The only time I was even remotely interested was when they told me I'd lose my right to have a gun for 5 years. Gun control Jocelyn laughed. Really? Somehow I didn't see this as being an issue in my near future. Let me sign my initials to that one with a flourish, please. But after being admitted, there were the finer details I couldn't have expected. I suppose it's a little like jail in that respect. The being escorted everywhere. Having my picture taken. I still don't know for what purpose. Having my belongings searched. The surrendering of my cell phones. Things like belts and shoelaces. By now I realized how truly uninterested I was in killing myself, and how very much like my anti-fantasy this truly was, as I looked around and thought what I had always suspected I would. I'm not like these people. They're really sick. They're really crazy. I don't belong here. How did this happen? At first, I guess they really thought I was a suicide threat. Someone came and checked on me every 15 minutes. I alternated between feeling like an idiot, trying to keep a low profile, trying to look as sane as possible, and being ragingly suspicious of everyone and everything. Apparently, you also have to submit to a TB test. I was not having it. Pacing back and forth between the nurse's station, they were trying to tell me that it was standard operating procedure, that it had to be done. Again, I was confronted with the idea that I had placed myself in a situation where I was going to be subjected to having things done to me against my will. Of course I didn't have tuberculosis, you fools! Where the fuck would I have gotten tuberculosis? Soon became apparent that I was probably going to have this happen whether I liked it or not, and I should probably just let it happen lest I end up in restraints or something. And no, I didn't have TB, motherfuckers! But the strangest of the routine. Things like art therapy, music therapy. I couldn't believe this was actually happening. Did they really think this was going to help? We were in a loony bin, not summer camp. I read as much as I could in between these bizarre group activities, hoping to lose myself in worlds of fiction, grabbing discarded novels, thanking God someone left some books in this ratty little library. After a day or so, they moved me downstairs to the second floor, a little more freedom, but a lot more routine. Getting up at 7 a.m. to read a meditation book in a group. Sitting for what amounted to classes on behavior and addiction and stress and the like. Making phone calls to family and friends. And being able to smoke in this enclosed little room, which seems preposterous now, but which was heaven then. Having my ex visit me and bring me things like a change of clothes and books and journals. Through everything that we went through, I am still eternally grateful for the fact that he came to see me. At one point I asked to read my chart. They were supposed to let you without a hassle, and they were pretty decent about it. At one point in my perusal, I saw that I'd been psychotic. Like most people, I was under the mistaken impression that if you were psychotic, you were grabbing an axe and going for broke. Turns out it just means that you're not in the same world as everyone else. Like the naked goddess on the L a few weeks ago, or the occasional person on the red line who is clearly talking to someone who isn't you, but who is clearly obviously pissing them off a shitload. Psychotic people have lost touch with the collective reality that the rest of us are participating in. Sometimes that involves violence, but most of the time it doesn't. The definition of psychosis was a useful thing to learn, and was one of the first of many things I was to learn about myself, and also one of the many things in my toolbox as I try to inform, educate, and advocate for people who struggle with mental illness, and the multi-layered facets that come with a diagnosis of manic depression, anxiety disorder, major depression, or schizophrenia. I was in the joint for a week. Ultimately, it ended up to be a good thing. So far, I've never been admitted again. I'm lucky that way. Most people aren't so fortunate. I got out on a Tuesday, and at that time, Steve and Liam of Frisbee had a residency going up at Pops Highwood, and I rarely missed that for anything. Why should just getting out of the psych ward change that? My friend Kelly came to pick me up, and we headed straight there. I was potentially seeing more clearly now, but I needed to hear something different than Johnny Nash. I needed to clear my head, and there was nothing better than some original Frisbee mixed in with some Fleetwood Mac and some Josh Rouse and some old 97s thrown in for good measure. I wanted this piece to be more humorous, have lighter moments. Instead, it's just the story of how I can see clearly now always makes me think of my week in the psych ward and what it's really like from the inside looking out. I'd like to shake off some of the stigma of mental illness for other people, if not for myself. I want the awareness of manic depression to lead to respect and advocacy, not for bipolar and manic to be tossed around as casual adjectives and general pejoratives, not things you call your annoying neighbor and ways to describe your shitty ex. I'm not sure why this is a story for tonight, but it's part of my story, and I'm mostly unafraid to tell it. Since I've become obsessed with the Avid Brothers as of late, I'll leave you with a much better song than the one we started with. I don't think I'm brave enough to sing this one, but it's from their song, Head Full of Doubt, Road Full of Promise. There's a darkness upon me that's flooded in light. In the fine print they tell me what's wrong and what's right. And it comes in black and it comes in white. And I'm frightened by those who don't see it. When nothing is owed, deserved, or expected, and your life doesn't change by the man that's elected. If you're loved by someone, you're never rejected. Decide what to be and go be it. That's it.
Jocelyn, Geboy.